Hello, folks. We're just getting all of the streams up. It's only going to take me a few minutes, and I will be right with y'all. Okay. All right, there we go. So I'm going to be, like always, in the chats. I did pre-record tonight's. Here is our stream for tonight. Didn't realize I was on the wrong page. Okay, yeah, just a little technical difficulty, but I managed to get that fixed. Okay. If you're hearing weird sounds, please let me know. That's why. Okay, muting the camera will probably make it so that you guys aren't hearing multiple microphones at the same time. So this should fix that lovely little echoing issue. Sorry, just got a couple more shares to get this out. So tonight's writing club meeting is focused on Women's History Month, famous female writers. For that, I do have a few announcements about things that are going to be going on soon. The book club book for the month is A Place Called Hope by Philip Gully. That is the adult book club. For the graphic novel book club, it is Scales and Scoundrels, book 1. Where Dragons Wander. If you want to read the other books too, we won't stop you. You can read that on Comics Plus. If you have any questions about Comics Plus, please shoot a comment in the chat and I will help you out as much as I can. I hit a button I didn't mean to hit, but okay, there we go. This Friday, we are having live music here at the library. If it is nice out, it is going to be outside. I have been told we are going to try and do it outside. If it is yucky out, we are in March. Who knows which way the weather is going to turn. It will be inside. This month is Trading Card Game Month. So we've already done Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Next Monday night at 6 is Magic the Gathering. There will be someone here who plays, I do believe, Standard. It's either Standard or Modern. Not entirely certain. I play Commander, so I'm going to have my 2 Commander decks. Both of them are precons, if anyone knows what that means. And I don't know what Emma runs for Magic the Gathering, but... And then the next week is Star Wars Unlimited. That is my shtick. That is my other trading card game that I do. I'm going to have my 2 training decks as well as... I probably have enough cards to put together a completely other deck. Who knows how good it's going to be, but I could put another one together if we get more people. And then on the 30th of the month, we are doing the One Piece trading card game. If you're interested, please come in. It's not limited only to kids. Anyone can show up. So yeah, come and hang out. So that is... We have some more interesting stuff coming up. Tomorrow night we're doing perler beads up in the teen room. Craft days on Saturday. We're making that lovely little shamrock looking puzzle piece thing. It's a wall hanger or a door hanger. Hold on, folks. It's still coming up weird. Okay, on the last Wednesday of the month, 25th, the 25th, we're going to be having, we're going to be doing a craft that is the Hunger Games symbol as a wooden, like, plaque kind of thing. So, without further ado, we will get started on our live for tonight. Again, if you want, if I am going to be watching the chat, this was pre-recorded, so alright, we're gonna get this started. Okay, famous female writers, CPL Writing Club, March of 2026, and we are beginning. Here's a list of who we will be covering: Enhead Luana, Murasaki Shikibu, Jane Austen, Mary Shelley, Sarojini Naidu, Agatha Christie, and Toni Morrison. So we will start off with our first name, Enhead Luana. She is our first author. She is actually considered to be the first named author in history, as in the earliest works of writing that we have found that have an author attributed to them are her works. Roughly in 2300 before Common Era, or BC, if that is what you would prefer to use. She was the high priestess of the moon god Inanna in the moon god Nana in the Sumerian city-state of Ur in the reign of her father Sargon of Akkad. She was likely appointed by her father as a leader of the religious group at Ur to cement his ties between the Akkadian religion of her father and the native Sumerian religion. There is a note, however, that she may not have been the blood daughter of Sargon of Akkad and was just called his daughter. I've found conflicting reports. Like I said, this is ancient history, and there are going to be arguments over what is true, what is not. You can see these stone tablets here on the screen are actually her writing. And what did she write? She wrote poetry, psalms, hymns, and prayers, which is what you expect from a priestess. These and the disc, which is said, the disc you can see right here on the screen as well, is said to depict her. Her name and her title, so it probably is depicting her somewhere on it. It was uncovered in 1927 by archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley at Ur, who found an alabaster disc bearing her name and title. And like all of the authors on today's list, we are going to read an excerpt of their writing. So for hers, I chose the hymn to Inanna. This is the website I got it from, so take of that what you will. It's lines 11 to 17. At her loud cries, the gods of the land become scared. Her roaring makes the Anuna gods tremble like a solitary steed. At her rumbling, they hide altogether. Without Inanna, great An makes no decisions, and Enlil determines no destinies. Who opposes the mistress who raises her head and is supreme over the mountains? Wherever she, cities become ruined mounds and haunted palaces, and shrines become wasteland. When her wrath makes people tremble, the burning sensation and the distress she causes are like an Ulu demon ensnaring a man. So we can definitely see from her writing, mind you, this is a translation, so it probably was more, probably had more of a rhythmical or hymn. As this was a hymn, it was probably meant to be sung, so there's probably a rhythm to it. You see how it says Inanna on here, and I said she was the priestess of Nana. This is a thing where there are different names for the same deity. So take of that what you will. Moving on to our next one, Murasaki Shikibu. This is the author of the first, what we would consider modern, written full-length novel. She wrote Genji Monogatari, The Tale of Genji, around 1010. This is during the Heian period of Japanese history. She was born in 978 CE in that's Common Era, or you'd also see AD used, in Kyoto, which was the head of the government of Japan at the time. She was a member of the Fujiwara clan, which was kind of, they weren't the emperor, but they were the power behind the emperor. But she wasn't from the main branch, she was from a lesser branch. She served as a lady in waiting, as we would know it in the. Sorry, I've got to get on my notes, which is on a different page. Um, a lady in waiting at the imperial court. She was also a poet. It was considered a good thing for a woman to know poetry. Um, that is her descriptive name. Her personal name is unknown, but she may have been Fujiwara no Kaoruko, who was mentioned in 1007 in a 1007 court diary as an imperial lady in waiting. So this is like her. Murasaki Shikibu is her pen name, basically. Um, so at the time period, women were traditionally excluded from learning Chinese, which was the written language of the government, but she learned in her father's household and showed an aptitude for the Chinese classics and managed to acquire fluency. She married sometime in her late 20s and gave birth to a daughter. Her husband died after 2 years of marriage, and it's unknown when she actually started to write the tale of Genji, but it is theorized it was while she was married or shortly after she was widowed. In She was invited to serve as a lady in waiting to Empress Shoshi at the imperial court by Fujiwara no Michinaga, who was probably because of her reputation with writing. She also wrote The Diary of Lady Murasaki, which was a volume of poetry, as well as The Tale of Genji. Now, The Tale of Genji is interesting as it is a chaptered book. Every chapter it has it has the formulaic layout that we would consider for today to be a chaptered book. It is written from the tale point of view of Genji up to a certain point, because there is a lovely thing that happens in this book that there's a character that dies, and the next chapter is completely blank because it was supposed to be from their point of view. This is, I believe it is Kumogakure. I'm not entirely certain how that translates. It has something to do with floating in the clouds, but it just has it's just blank. The page is blank, and that is a show of the person who should be telling the story has died. And then it goes on to the second half of the novel. So here is our excerpt. Again, this is translated. You can find copies of this book. I do believe Penguin publishes a translated version. At the court of the emperor he lived, it matters not when. There was among the many gentlewomen of the wardrobe and chamber one who, though she was not of very high rank, was favored far beyond all the rest. So that the great ladies of the palace, each of whom had secretly hoped that she herself would be chosen, looked with scorn and hatred upon the upstart who had dispelled their dreams. Still less were her former companions, the minor ladies of the wardrobe, content to see her raised so far above them. Thus her position at court, preponderant though it was, exposed her constantly to constant jealousy and ill will, and soon, wore out with petty vexations, she fell into a decline, growing very melancholy and retiring frequently to her home. As you can tell with the Tale of Genji excerpt here, the whole story is very much about the Heian era court antics that happen. I am not a fluent expert in them, or any kind of royal court antics, but apparently there a lot of jealousy, a lot of people scorn and hating people. There's jealousy, there's plots. It's very interesting from a writing point of view. Okay, next up. Too far. Jane Austen. This one is going to be familiar to many people as she is very famous. Um, so, Jane Austen was born the 16th of December, 1775, in Steventon, Hampshire, England. She would have 6 brothers and 1 sister. So, we're talking 18th century England. So, most of her writing of the 6 novels that are attributed to her are very much interpretation, critique, and commenting on the English gentry at roughly the end of the 18th century. Uh, her plots often focus on things such as the dependence of women on marriage for the pursuit of favorable social standing and economic security. It also critiques the nobles' sensibility of the second half of the 18th century and the transition into realism. Uh, so there is a lot of commentary that perhaps if you aren't familiar with 18th century, especially late 18th century England, you might not be picking up on all of the this, that, and thous when you read Pride and Prejudice. Um, she wrote major novels before the age of 22, but she did not publish them until she was 35. She was not published until 35. And in fact, in her lifetime, she anonymously published the 4 books that she had published, which was Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Emma. Privately to her friends and her family, and notably the Prince Regent at the time, those were the people who knew she was the author of these books. The other 2 books that she wrote, Northanger Abbey and Persuasion, were both posthumously published in 1817. And there was another that was started before her death that she never finished called Sanditon. She never married. She, in fact, lived as a spinster with her sister, Cassandra, who they were both spinsters, meaning they were unmarried women. So let us go to our Sense and Sensibility excerpt. I chose Sense and Sensibility because so many people focus on Pride and Prejudice, but this is also a very good book as well. The family of Dashwood had been long settled in Sussex. Their estate was large, and their residence was at Norland Park, in the centre of their property, where, for many generations, they had lived in so respectable a manner as to engage the general good opinion of their surrounding acquaintance. The late owner of this estate was a single man who lived to a very advanced age, and who, for many years of his life, had a constant companion and housekeeper in his sister. But her death, which happened 10 years before his own, produced a great alteration in his home. For, to supply her loss, he invited and received into his house the family of his nephew, Mr. Henry Dashwood, the legal inheritor of Norland estate, and the person to whom he intended to bequeath it. So right now we can tell that this is going to be about this family, the Dashwood family. And there seems to be some things going on between the previous owner of the house, or the previous owner of the estate, and the people who are now the inheritors of it. So that's what we can assume from this opening paragraph. We can assume there's going to be a lot of respectability, especially when there's emphasis on having lived in so respectable a manner. So, that is a lot of Jane Austen. A lot of Jane Austen's is romance, yes, but it's also commentary on the romance at the time and how it would have been done. Alright, we're going to move on to our next person. Another famous person. Another famous author. Mary Shelley, or Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley née Goodwin. She is perhaps best known for her Gothic novel Frankenstein or The Modern Prometheus. She is considered by many to be the mother of science fiction. Also the mother of Gothic, of like the It can be seen as kind of like the gothic fantasy, but very much considered by many to be the mother of science fiction, as it is considered a very early example of science fiction, as well as being very popular. Now, Mary's mother died 11 days after giving birth to her. So Mary was born in August 30th, 1797 in London, England. And she was raised by her father, who, when Mary was about 4, his father married their neighbor, Mary Jane Claremont, who Mary and she apparently did not get along with. In 1814, Mary began a romance with Percy Bysshe Shelley, who was already married at the time. And together with her stepsister, Claire Claremont, she and Percy left for France and traveled through Europe. And upon their return, Mary was pregnant with Percy's child. Over the next 2 years, she and Percy faced ostracism, constant debt, and the death of their prematurely born daughter. And they married in late 1816 after the death of Percy Shelley's wife, Harriet. So I've always heard the story with Mary and Percy that Percy ran afoul of her father's attitude somewhere. And in order for them to meet, they would meet at Mary's mother's grave and have dates there. I've also heard, and I do believe that there was, I do believe that it was actually true that she kept her husband's petrified heart in her desk, because he did die before her. Now, as for the writing of Frankenstein, it was written around 1816, where the couple and Mary's stepsister famously spent a summer with Lord Byron and John William Polidori near Geneva, Switzerland. This is where she came up with the idea. I've always heard it was a writing competition between all the people there, and Shelley's the only one who had, Mary Shelley was the only one who had anything that came of it. Now, she did write more than just Frankenstein. She does have other books to her name. It's just Frankenstein is the one that everyone knows. Let's see, what else did she write? Oh, sorry. Sorry, I have to find the bibliography I buried in my notes. Alright, so we have Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus, originally published in 1818 in 3 volumes. Then we have Valperga or the Life and Adventures of Castruccio, Prince of Lucca, which was published in 1823. The Last Man, which was published in 1826. The Fortunes of Perkin Warbeck, a Romance, which was written in 1830. Lodore, which was written in 1835. Faulkner, a novel, was published in 1837, and Matilda, which was actually not published until 1959. She also wrote several travel narratives, 2 of which are Rambles in Germany and Italy in 1840, 1842, and 1843. And that was her last published work during her lifetime. If you hold just a moment. Yes. I am currently recording my thing for next week. I will do it when I'm done. I'm almost done. Sorry about that. And a history of a 6 weeks tour through a part of France, Switzerland, Germany, and Holland with letters descriptive of a sail around the Lake of Geneva and the glaciers of Chamouni. So, yes, she wrote far more than just Frankenstein. That is just what everyone knows her for. All right, here's our excerpt from Frankenstein, chapter 10. As I said this, I suddenly beheld the figure of a man at some distance advancing towards me with superhuman speed. He bounded over the crevices in the ice, among which I had walked with caution. His stature also, as he approached, seemed to exceed that of a man. I was troubled, a mist came over my eyes, and I felt a faintness seize me, but I was quickly restored by the cold gale of the mountains. I perceived, as the shape came nearer, slight, tremendous and abhorred, that it was the wretch whom I had created. I trembled with rage and horror, resolving to wait his approach, and then close with him in mortal combat. Some of the themes that Shelley would really focus on is gender roles and how can I put this? How can I put this? I have seen interpretations of Frankenstein as Frankenstein being the mother. That is, I've seen the interpretation of Frankenstein as being about what happens when a man tries to have a baby without a woman, and Frankenstein is profoundly concerned with natural as opposed to unnatural modes of production and reproduction, and the failure of a parent, which Victor Frankenstein was a failure of a parent. So there is that as a focus of some of her writing, especially Frankenstein, as her earliest works. All right, next up on our list, because I need to get through these real quick. Sarojini Naidu. I am probably mangling that. She was born February 13th, 1879, to a Bengali family in Hyderabad, which is in India, if you couldn't tell. She was an Indian political activist and poet who served as the first governor of United Provinces after India's independence, and she played a very important role in the Indian independence movement against the British Raj. She was also the first Indian woman to be president of the Indian National Congress and appointed governor of a state. As I said, she was born in 1879 to Agoranath Chattopadhyay. I am completely mangling that. Her father was from Bengal, which is now Bangladesh. Her father was a Bengali Brahmin and principal of Nizam College and held a doctorate in science from Edinburgh University, which Sarojini here would go on to actually get a degree from King's College in London. She studied in King's College, London, and then Girton College in Cambridge with the scholarship of Nizam of Hyderabad. In English, she did meet many artists and from the aesthetic and decadent movements. In 1898, she returned to Hyderabad, and in the same year, she married Govindaraju Naidu, a doctor who she met during her stay in England. It's an intercaste marriage, which had been called groundbreaking and scandalous at the time. Both of their families, though, did approve, which was long and harmonious, and they had 5 children. Their daughter Padmaja also joined the Quit India movement, and she had several government positions in independent India. So Naidu was a poet. She was a feminist. Mahatma Gandhi actually called her the Nightingale of India, and she wrote over 100 poems. In fact, here is one of them. It is a translation. I do believe it might be English. Because she was trained in England. Like a joy on the heart of a sorrow, The sunset hangs on a cloud, a golden storm of glittering sheaves of fair and frail and fluttering leaves. The wild wind blows in a cloud. Hark to a voice that is calling, to my heart in the voice of the wind. My heart is weary and sad and alone, for its dreams, like the fluttering leaves, have gone, and why should I stay behind? I have read when I was doing research on her that she did have some difficulties in reconciling the fact that she was an Indian woman who had spent so much time in England, including the time that she was being educated in England. She had to come to terms with that dichotomy within herself. So there are several of her poems, several of her writings actually are her working through this or her writing about this. All right, we're almost done. We only have two more. I may talk more about these two because I know more about them. Agatha Christie, aka the Queen of Mysteries. Born in 1890 in Torquay, Devon, England, she is the best-selling novelist of all time, having 66 detective novels and 14 short story collections. She was a writer during the golden age of detective fiction. We can blame her, blame, I'm putting air quotes around this, for the rise of the cozy mystery because of Mrs. Marple. She was born into a wealthy upper-class family in Torquay, Devon, and she was largely homeschooled. She was initially an unsuccessful writer with 6 consecutive rejections, but in 1920, she did get The Mysterious Affair at Styles, which featured one of her more well-known characters, Detective Hercule Poirot. If you've ever watched any of the Poirot movies, you know the man has a magnificent mustache. Her first marriage did have a breakdown, and her death of her mother in 1926. She made... Okay. Her first husband was Archibald Christie, and they were married from 1914, had one child before divorcing in 1928. While her marriage was breaking down, her mother dies in 1926, and Christie made national news by disappearing for 11 days. In fact, she made international headlines by disappearing for 11 days. Now, World War I, and she volunteers as like a nurse. And she does get her apothecary's assistant. She becomes an apothecary's assistant. That means she knows much about poisons and medicines. And a lot of people point out that that is actually she served in several hospital dispensaries, and through the knowledge that she acquired on this job, that's why there are so many poisons used in her works. Then in 1930, she marries an archaeologist, Max Mallowan, and she and him spend several months each year on archaeological excavations in the Middle East, and she used that first-hand knowledge to write her fiction. She remains according to UNESCO's Index Translatonium, she is the most translated individual author. And her novel, And Then There Were None, which has several other titles that I will not be saying here because I do not want to get canceled, is one of the top-selling books of all time with about 100 million copies sold. That was actually a book that we did for our reading club. And she died January 12th, 1976 at the age of 85 in Wallingford, Oxfordshire, England. About the point of her doing archaeology, I have heard this, I cannot verify it, but I've heard that she was reaching out to other archaeologists, other people in the field, trying to find the expert in this certain kind of pottery because she wanted to write about it in one of her novels. And she got a letter back saying, Agatha, the expert in this pottery is you. Mind you, I have not been able to verify this. It's just a anecdote that I have found while researching her. So who knows if that is true, but it definitely wouldn't surprise me. So let's do, I'm not going to read all of this. I am only going to read to about here where we talk about the mustache. This is Murder on the Orient Express, one of the most famous Hercule Poirot mysteries. It was 5 o'clock on a winter's morning in Syria. Alongside the platform at Aleppo stood the train grandly, designated in railway guides as the Taurus Express. It consisted of a kitchen and dining car, a sleeping car, and two local coaches. By the step leading up into the sleeping car stood a young French lieutenant, resplendent in uniform, conversing with a small man muffled up to the ears, of whom nothing was visible but a pink-tipped nose and the 2 points of an upwardly curled mustache. On to our last person. This is Toni Morrison, born February 18th, 1931, in Lorain, Ohio. Her whole name was actually Chloe Anthony Woodford Morrison, and Toni comes from her baptismal name of Anthony, and she went by Toni. She had a BA in English from Howard University and a master's in American Literature from Cornell. She has a very large bibliography. Like, we're talking very large. How many books are on it? There's a lot. I do recommend looking it up. She did have a lot. She was also a political leader. She was also hang on. One of she did in 1993. Now, you may know her from the Beloved series, which was turned into a movie that was her book. Her first novel was actually The Bluest Eye, which was published in 1970, and one of her most critically acclaimed book, The Song of Solomon, in 1977, brought her national acclaim and won the National Book Critics Circle Award. She was a that is what won her the Nobel Prize in Literature, was The Bluest Eye, apparently. She was very active in politics. She did, mind you, I have tons of notes everywhere. She spoke very openly about American politics and race relations. She did call during the impeachment of President Clinton in 1998. She did claim that Bill Clinton, was being mistreated in the same way black people often were. In fact, she is the one who called him our first black president. That is not to say that she thought he was black. She was saying he was being treated very much the same way that a black man on the street would be treated, be seen as already guilty and already a perp. She did not, however, identify as a feminist. So she wrote several papers in addition to her fictional writing. She did write several papers. Those papers are part of the permanent collections at Princeton University, where they are held in the Manuscripts Department, Department of Rare Books, and Special Collections. I don't know. You have to check the meeting room. And there are a lot of schools and dining hall. Cornell University opened the Toni Morrison Dining Hall in 2021, which is a residence hall, and the Morrison Dining in 2022, which is adjacent in. So her name is on a lot of stuff. She did, unfortunately, pass away in New York City, in the Bronx, at the Montefiore Medical Center on August 5th, 2019, at the age of 88 from the complications of pneumonia. So now let's read the last excerpt of the day. We are only going to read to the part about the insurance agent. The North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance agent promised to fly from Mercy to the other side of Lake Superior at 3 o'clock. 2 days before the event was to take place, he tacked a note on the door of his little yellow house. At 3 p.m. on Wednesday, the 18th of February, 1931, I will take off from Mercy and fly away on my own wings. Please forgive me. I loved you all. Signed, Robert Smith, insurance agent. This is the opening paragraphs for the book. We do have many of these books that I have already spoke of in our collection, so please feel free to come by and check them out. Okay, hello, I'm back. So that was our lesson for today. Our next meeting will be in April. It will be, let me look at the calendar. I do believe it's like the 11th? 14th. It's the 14th. So, next month's topic is going to be show, don't tell, and how this concept works, how to write it better, that kind of sort of thing. And just a reminder, Friday we are having live music here at the library. Come in anytime after 2:30. We're going to try and have them be on the our patio, but if the weather is bad, Indiana in the beginning of spring, who knows which way the wind is going to be blowing and if there's going to be rain coming down with it. We're supposed to get hail tonight as an example of how crazy the weather is. If they're not outside on our patio, they'll probably be up on our balcony or in one of our meeting rooms. So, brain go burr. Don't forget to check into our Google Classroom for the Writing Club. And we will actually see you later. Unless anyone has any questions. Doesn't seem to be any questions that I haven't answered. So I'm going to shut down the stream. If there are any more questions, you can always forward them to me. We do have a Facebook page. If you're on our Facebook right now watching this, you can always tune in on our send questions to our Facebook page and I will get them answered. So thank you all.